Welcome, welcome. It's Dr. Shane Harada here again with this week's health tip. And we are continuing from last week's discussion of the entanglement and Einstein's mathematical equation, E equals mc squared. We're also continuing our discussion on the spiritual and the physical and the mind-body connection. So, as we move forward with this, we discussed how one part of a liver that's been severed and separated from another part of a liver will respond equally. Doesn't matter which part of that liver is stimulated. And they were doing that with electrodes and electricity stimulation. And then the other part would be affected and would respond. So let's discuss now the electron a little bit further, because the electron, as I've mentioned, displays attributes of light waves and also attributes of particle waves. So with the electron and the proton and the atom, let's discuss this a little bit further, because the atom at a microscopic level, let's just say that we're the size of a Volkswagen Beetle to an SUV, okay? So it's the size of a car. If we were then to take the electron and, shall we say, macroscopic, or increase its size to match the scale of the proton being the SUV, if we were to do that, the scale and the size of the electron would be a chickpea. Not that big around, about as big as a marble, compared to the size of an SUV. That is the comparative size of the electron to the proton. Now, that's interesting. However, the electron travels around that proton and the nucleus, right? And that's the model. Now, the incredible thing about that is the field, or the gamut, the radius that electron can travel in proportion with an SUV and a chickpea, 85,000 square miles, twice the size of Cuba, is where that electron could appear or disappear in that field at any moment in time. I hope that gives you scale to what I meant when I said looking from outer space and the size of the planets that are hundreds of miles in diameter, and comparing that then to the millions of miles between the planets. It's about the same if you're looking at scale. So that's what I meant by our physical body makeup is literally a mirroring of the universal makeup. So we discussed also the entanglement and how two electrons can be bonded together to create unity, and in that unity, when one is affected or disappears, the other one disappears at exactly the same moment. Now that entanglement, as I mentioned, is also now coming into DNA and a parent's relationship with the children. And there have been experiences where mothers have known that something just happened when their child was injured in an accident or had a traumatic event of some type, but that child is thousands of miles away. That, to me, helps to explain that entanglement. Understanding the entanglement helps to explain that phenomena that we know happens, and we call it intuition or intuitiveness. It's a physical law, it's a physical principle in quantum physics. It's amazing how that works. Now let's expand that with a study that was done called the baby chick experiment. And most people know that baby birds, when they crack out of their shell, the first being or thing that they see, the first movement, they go through a process called imprinting, and they imprint upon that. Now, if that's their mother, then they follow their mother around. And that is typically why imprinting happens, so that the baby chicks will know that that is their mother and then be able to follow and be under the protection of the mother. Now, there have been experiments, and Rene Pioche did this experiment where he took a robot that was programmed to turn left or turn right 50% of the time. And then with that random movement and that random generator, he actually put this robot in an arena type setting and documented its path all around the arena to make sure that it was random and that it was covering the whole space. Then what he did was he took this robot and some baby chicks and imprinted the baby chicks to the robot. So now the baby chicks were tied to that mechanical engineering. He put the chicks in a cage and set them to one end of the arena, and then set the robot to go around, and recorded the pattern with the baby chicks. Now, obviously, these baby chicks with imprinting, they have entangled to that robot. But it was just absolutely amazing what happened. In this diagram right here shows the top and the bottom. The top one here is the robot without the imprinting, and the bottom one here shows the robot with the chicks over here on this side. And you see how that pattern, that robot then began to go to that side of the arena. That is amazing as an experiment, a physical experiment to show the influence. And if baby chicks can have that kind of an influence on a robot, what kind of influence do we have in our observations and in our physical world that we may or may not be aware of? And can you imagine now, if you are more engaged, more intentional? Some people call it the law of attraction. The law of attraction absolutely is real. This is the law of entanglement and how it works. Now, when we use this intentionally, I prefer to call it the law of generation. We are generators in energy. We create energy. We create our environment. And we'll, some point, I hope that we can talk about also the law of observation. Because in quantum physics and with these electrons, a person can see it or a person cannot see it depending upon what they expect to observe. The experiment is literally dependent upon the observer and what the observer intends and expects to see. In the quantum physics realm, that's the study that's been shown to happen. And now in multiple experiences, and I hope you're becoming more aware and more open and more understanding, and this is cracking open some matter so that you have more information now, more experience, more understanding to now start asking more questions and opening up in your awakening, opening up in your enlightenment. That's really the purpose that I have, is to get this information out there so that we can help people. I love this knowledge. I love this information. Absolutely incredible. So we will continue our conversation, because I didn't get to very much of it today, just one topic. However, I hope you're able to see now the ability that we have in this law of generation. As our chakras, our meridians, our energy centers are filled with this energy and light. And it doesn't matter what religion you are or what culture you come from. Most cultures have these definitions, experiences, the spiritual enlightened individuals within the cultures and within the societies that help us to see these principles, help us to see what more of these universal laws. We're going to talk some more about them, and I hope to see you next week. Like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you again soon. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.